Okay, now we're recording. So here we have the component. We already saw the functionality of it. So now let's take a look at the code and see how it works. We're going to start from the app TSX component and work our way from there. So in here, we have created an array of topics. We've already predefined what they are. If you copy these, that's fine. If you added your own, that's fine. Just as long as they look something like this. They should have had a title because that's what we're going to display when it's not open. Content, which is what's going to show when it's open, and an ID so that we can use the map array method and not get any issues when we add our keys, which must be unique. So from here, we are importing in this example, we're importing the topic from our accordion page, as well as the accordion component, which we have here. If you put the topic in here, that's fine too. You just know that you're going to have to pass it to the accordion by importing it in that page. And last, we have the accordion. We have the topics prop or property, and we've set it to topic. So we're passing this array as props to our accordion. So now let's take a look at the accordion. And there we go. We have accordion. We have the topic we talked about with ID, title, and content. And here we are actually importing useState. So this will be a stateful component. We will have the open topic and the setter function set open topic. Trey, I know that when you asked me how to do it, your approach was totally fine if you wanted to store the index of the one that's currently open, just as long as when you pass the open topic in here, you passed it with the index as well. The point is that our topic cards needs to receive an index, and we need to know which one is the one that is currently open. So next we will see, of course, our props, very important. Our props is going to be the topics array, which we are passing, so we get no errors. And here we are using object destructuring to grab that topics as opposed to doing props.topics. We just grab the topics variable here so we can use it in our component. Okay, we'll move in order. I already talked about the state. Next, we have a function, handle open topic, that is going to take in one topic that's an object of type topic, and it returns void. It doesn't return anything. It's just going to use the setter function in here. So here we are going to check if the open topic equals topic, then we're going to set open topic undefined. If you were using storing the object here instead of the index, then that's what you would want to do. You would want to set it to undefined. And by the way, we are able to set it as undefined because here in our use state, we define what is going to hold. So if we were to remove this, then we would get an error telling us, yeah, topic is not assignable to parameter of type set state action. It does not match the signature. So if we want to use undefined when we are using TypeScript, then we have to tell it what it's going to be when we set it to null. This is actually true of React with TypeScript. With JavaScript, you would have no issue, but we are using TypeScript, which is better and is going to keep us safe from making any errors like that. So make sure you pass it if you went with the undefined approach. If you went with an index approach, you could have, to make sure if it was already open, you would match the index to the current index of the one that was clicked, and you could set it to an index that you know is out of bounds, for instance, like a negative number. But otherwise here in this example, we are going to use the object. If it's already open, then we set it to undefined. So that way none of them are open. Otherwise, we're going to set it to the one passed like that. Next, in our return statement, we are going to wrap everything in a div. And inside that div, we're going to use the map method, array method on topics, which we know is a list of objects or an array of objects. Topic objects to be specific. And in our callback function, we are going to first pass the topic card, which is a component defined below, which we'll get into in a second. Very, very important. You must have the topic ID or you have to have a key in there. And by now, I'm sure you've already seen it, but I kind of can be a stickler about this one, especially because when I'm reviewing and everything looks perfect, and then I see this right here, then I'm gonna like send it back for changes. So you should, from time to time, if you're developing without your console open, just make sure you check it. You don't want to see this. This is a really, really easy fix. And the thing is, because it doesn't actually look like anything's broken, even though we don't have a key, then you might not even realize that you're doing that. So we're getting that each child should have a unique key prop. The way we solve that is by giving it, passing the ID as key. And by the way, if you are using map and you have a more complex return statement within map, for example, maybe nested objects, you would have to put it on the very first one. So for this example, where did I put the other div? Okay. I'm just gonna demo that really quickly. Okay, I thought the autocomplete would be helping me out. I guess not. So now I've moved that inside of a div. So it looks exactly the same, except that my key is in here. It is inside of the nested component. So when we go and refresh, I'm going to get that error again. Key must be on the parent component, the top level component of whatever you're returning. So simply by making topic card the only thing we're returning, it's not nested in any way. Well, it is, but that's what goes in here. As far as functional components, there's nothing else inside of it. Then we are getting rid of that error. Okay, just wanted to touch on that really quick because it's an easy fix and also an easy mistake to make. So in our return statement, we are mapping through the topics array. For each topic in the array, we are returning one topic card. We've already said the key topic is going to be an object. If you were to use an index instead, you would probably need to go topics and then specify which index you're passing. Although since we're mapping, no, I'm sorry, I take that back. Scratch that. Next, we have another variable is open, which we have defined as topic, strict equality, open topic. So this is going to check that the topic is the one here. And by topic, I mean the one that we're mapping over is the same one as this. Now, just a little fun fact about TypeScript, JavaScript here is that when we talk about objects like this, we are actually not checking that they are of equal value. In JavaScript and TypeScript, objects are reference types. So in order for this strict equality to work, it has to be the exact same object, not an object with the same properties and values inside of it, because that will not work. Those are different reference types. That is how we differentiate between primitive types like numbers, which we can check is 0 equal to 0 and get true, but we cannot check empty object equal to empty object because it's not equal. It's going to be false. So this is going to make sure that the topic that we have in state is referencing the same, the topic, which is open topic that we have in state is referencing the topic that we're mapping over. And then last, we have an on-click. We're passing as props an on-click, which is going to just be a call through an anonymous function to the handle open topic, which we defined over here. Cool. Any questions so far? Everything makes sense? Okay, we'll move on to the last part of this, which is the topic card itself. So the topic card, we've defined our props. We've already explained what each one is. Key, obviously, we don't have to worry about it because that is for the map. We're just looking at these three. We've already explained what each of them are, but make sure you have your props, so your type. And now that we've already gone over that, we can just actually see the return value of them. It's going to return a div. We have a class name because there's some styling. And by the way, I'll show the styling on what each class is doing so that if you wanted to style yours to look like this, you could do so as well. But for now, let's just look at the HTML. We have a div. We know that we have to have a top level component where everything else is inside of. We cannot have two divs in here, right? So everything has to be inside of one div or a React fragment. And then inside of that, we have this div on click. That's where we're actually going to be clicking on. We have the event handler, an H3 topic title. That's this right here. And then last, we have if it is open, then we are rendering this additional div. So if is open is equal to true, then we're going to include this additional one. Again, it has some styling, topic content. As you can see, this style is different from the top one. I'm sure it would look much better if I had light theme, but it is what it is. I prefer my dark theme. So topic content, and inside of that, we're going to put the actual topic content property from the topic that we passed on here. Okay. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. I'm gonna assume that silence means everything's good, and then we'll take a look at the CSS next. Okay, let's look at the accordion CSS. That's where we have everything. All of our CSS for this. So here we have on topic, we gave it a predetermined width of 500 pixels. So it's always going to be 500 pixels. This is not dynamic. It's going to show the same no matter what. We're not using relative units. Next is the cursor pointer. That is why it looks like it's a clickable, and that lets the user know it's clickable. So that's another good one to have. For topic title, we use background color light gray. I think that's a little bit too much, or not enough contracts with the title, in my opinion. But I think that's coming from the fact that I have the light theme. Otherwise, the text might be black. Let's see if I can change it really quick. Where's the prefers? That's okay. Oh well. Anyway, go back to the CSS. So topic title, in fact, I'll just change it in here. Color black. There you go. That's much better. More contrast. And we have a margin of 0. I've given it in color black so that it looks better with my dark theme. And then topic content, we have cursor auto. That means that when we're on here, it's going to be the regular cursor, or if I'm hovering above text, it's going to be this cursor that users already associated with text. And next, for the topic title and the topic content, we're going to add some padding in there. 1 rem, a border, solid border, although it is invisible against the darker background, but it is there. And that is the CSS we've used for that. So if you are creating yours and you're having a problem where it kind of, if it's closed, it looks one way, and then when it opens, it looks a different way, I'll tell you what it is, and that is the width. You need to make sure you have that on the topic, an exact width, in this case, 500 pixels, because otherwise, if we don't have this, then it's going to look this way when it's closed, and then when it's reopening and the content is stretching out the div, then it's going to look different. I've found that that's one of the issues that most people run into. So I'll tell you what the secret is. Make sure you give it a width, and then it'll be forced to fit the content inside those 500 pixel width. Okay. What do we think? Any questions? Does that make sense? Everything clear? Okay. Well, yes, Trey.
Well, I guess I messed up. I know it said to create another component, but rather than doing it inside of Accordion, I created another file called topic card.
You did
Do
not
I
mess
need
up. No, you're good. And I'm gonna be honest. When I personally prefer that, I think it's much cleaner. Every file, every component has its own file. Um, that's a matter of preference, and I've seen that in LearningFuze. We do a lot of sharing components in the same page. If you did it on another page, that is totally 100% fine. Just remember that the only thing is that if you need access to certain things that were already imported on the file, you have to import them again in your new file. So all you're really doing is adding an additional line of import, whatever it is, like the type, you might need it. If you define your type topic inside of the accordion and you need it again on the topic card, you might have to import it there. But if you did it in a separate file, that is 100% okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anything else? Okay. Well, I know that I heard that some people had some difficulty with the functionality, so I'm gonna take the no questions as you guys understood this well, and you'll be able to complete this on your own if you haven't done so already. And I'll take a look at the submissions once they come in. But in that case, we can look at the next topic, which is going to be React effects. Okay. This refers to the use effect component. I'll do a brief introduction and then I'll release the exercise for you to work on. Has anyone heard of or used the use effect hook before? Okay. So right now you're familiar with use state. That's probably the most commonly used hook in React. And I would say number two is going to be React, or I'm sorry, it's going to be use effect. Use effect allows us to create side effects when certain things happen in our component, like when the page, the DOM content loads. If you remember from the junior side, how we had event listeners on the page and we would check when the DOM content loaded. If anybody remembers that, this is going to be similar to this. So when we have a use effect, it's going to first it can have conditions, so we can check and make sure that under certain conditions the code runs. Otherwise, it's going to run the code in there when the DOM content is loaded on the page. I will open up that exercise here so we can look at the code on your starter files. React effects. Okay, so you will already be given this to work with. So you won't have an empty, you won't have to create your new one. And then you're going to want to look inside the list TSX, your component. You see the use effect here. You're going to have to add it, read about what it does and how it works. I will show while we're here some syntax of how that is. And here, what they wanted you to know is that because use effect is so commonly used to make API calls, usually once our DOM content has loaded, we want to make an API call and populate our HTML with whatever we're mapping over, whatever we fetch from an API. But it doesn't work like that when you have asynchronous functions. So asynchronous functions, you cannot define, normally we use anonymous functions in here, callback functions, but we cannot make them asynchronous. If we wanted to use an asynchronous function, like very commonly fetch from an API. So in fact, I'll show an example here. Use effect. This is usually how I write my use effect, and then I'll put whatever I actually want to happen in there. If you didn't know, you can actually make this anonymous functions outside of use effect asynchronous like this, and it will work. But here, it's going to tell you is not assignable to a parameter of type effect callback. You cannot make this asynchronous. You have to instead, inside of your callback function in here, and this will make sense once you actually look at it, because right now you're probably seeing like, oh, what does this do? You can actually create a function that you define, async function fetch data, and then you define it, you put whatever goes on here, and then you call it inside of the hook. So then we put fetch data. So I just wanted to show you, I'm gonna put just console log, just so it gets rid of there. This obviously would not be asynchronous, but say pretending here we have the code that makes our API call, our fetch call to either our own API or a third-party one, and you would actually call it this way. For this is only true of use effect. You can actually have asynchronous functions defining it outside of that. Like you could have another fetch, I don't know, clients. You could have async function fetch clients in here, and then this would be no problem. This is only true when we want to put it inside of the use effect. Okay. I'll tell you right here. This pattern is unusual and is only needed inside a use effect. Otherwise, if we just want to do something else, whenever our page first loads, this is going to run. So here, console log, let's not just put hi. Page loaded, and that's going to run when the page first loads. Let me see if I can open this up really quick. Okay. Okay, so that's part of the loading. You're gonna have to fix this to make sure it works. But page loaded, so this is gonna wait until the page loads, and then obviously it's almost instantaneous. So to us, it doesn't look like anything. But if you have asynchronous data and something is waiting for it needs to wait for the page to load, then it's important that we do it this way, right? So this is gonna wait for all of the HTML, all the JavaScript, all the everything to load, and then it's going to console log that. Other things to know about the use effect hook. What we put in here is what's going to happen. But if we wanted to also run when something changes, we put it inside of this array right here. This is called the dependencies array. So say I wanted this when it's loading changes, then it's going to say page loaded. I would put that in here. So anytime that it's loading, flips from true to false or it changes its value, then this is going to run again. So that's really valuable in case you wanted something to happen when some as an effect, after effect of something else happening. When you change the value of something and you want it to do something, in this case it's just console logging page loaded, then you can do it this way. You can have multiple use effects if you need it, but usually you group them together by what they're doing. And then another thing I wanted to point out about this exercise in particular, it'll tell you in here about strict mode. If you guys are familiar with strict mode, what it does is it's meant for in the development stage, it runs things twice, and that helps us catch errors. But here we have been given a mock API call that is going to conflict with the way that running it twice would work. So that's the read right here. What do I mean by it's going to conflict? It's going to check the math.random. If this happens twice, it's not going to give you the same result every time, right? Because you might get an error on the first one or a successful mock API call on the second one. So in order for that to work, inside of the main TSX file, in case you haven't looked at this one before, this is where we grab the root element and then we render the app. It's basically the virtual DOM is we're giving a blueprints on how to work. Usually we have this app wrapped around a strict mode. In this case, it has been removed for you, so you won't have any issues. By the way, strict mode does not run once you actually deploy your application. It is meant for development purposes, and you don't have to change that. Usually when you build your application for deployment, that is removed. Just know that that is different from your other applications that you created yourself. Strict mode has been removed. If you want to know more about strict mode, you can read about it here. Okay, so do look at the component, the life cycle, and synchronizing with effects. When you'll need to know when you want to use effect versus just an event listener. And yeah, that's about the introduction for this exercise. Do we have any questions on this? Okay, no questions. By the way, Do look at the documentation from the React page for use effect, because there is another thing that you will want to know later. And that is that use effect does return something, and you'll need to know what that is for a future exercise, not for this one, but it'll be definitely helpful for you to know what it is. So take a quick read at this, or not so quick. Make sure you understand it well and understand what's going on. And then, yeah, I'll go ahead and assign the exercise now. Let me stop recording.